Renaissance for Malevolence. This is a side comic by Scourge's best buddy on DeviantArt about the late King of Mercia, the evil Robbo Hedge. It's easy to forget that Robbo Hedge was supposed to be the King of Mercia, since we never saw him get to rule it. But his evil twin did get to. The people of Mercia used to talk about an entity that could bring back the dead, but no matter what gift anybody would offer him to do so, he just killed them anyways. Why did he even get a reputation for bringing back the dead then if he never did it before? Because apparently nothing would make him feel like doing so for people. I can understand him being responsible and thinking that's unnatural to bring back the dead, because people have to die and that's the natural way of things. To avoid overpopulation for one. But all he should have done was refuse to bring someone back to life. He didn't have to outright send the people who came to the underworld. That's what makes him evil. Did he only bring back people he really liked? Why would he have gotten especially close to anybody if he's such an evil dragon? He is cool looking though, but he doesn't really give off a Sonic character vibe. There's already dragons like Dulcie and Sonic. Not to mention malevolent gods like Chaos and Dark Gaia. And we got an Eastern dragon in the form of Dulcie's boyfriend. So this guy can fit right into Sonic's universe. Especially with Mercia already being like Camelot anyways, which had medieval dragons in its stories. We see someone with a lantern go down some dark stairs and head towards a cavern. And the only reason you know was supposed to be the evil Rob right away is that there was one page where he was on the floor being stared at by a hedgehog with a sword. And there's some character art from right before the pages in the gallery with the description. He knows the dragon's in the cave, and it turns out the dragon's name is Mexique's Malice. And he somehow knows he's royalty by his scent. Wait, he's a ghost. How could he possibly have a scent? That's one magical dragon and can smell his soul. He says his life was taken by his brother, and he wants a second chance, but Mexique tells him he doesn't have much reason to give it to someone as narcissistic as himself. I guess Mexique goes out of his way to research Mobius. And that's why he knows that this guy's like that despite having never met him before. Wait a minute, how does he know he's a narcissist most of the time if he was surprised to learn that he was royalty? He only knew he was royalty because he smelled like it. It's like smelling him magically gave him information about his entire personality. I guess that's how magical he really is. I'm surprised an evil dragon like him even cares that this guy's a narcissistic evil king in the first place. It's distracting how unfinished the art is. It goes from really cool on the first page to having him look lame and colorless and leaving the sketched circles on his head unerased for no reason. It's a good thing the story is fascinating enough for me to still be invested in after this, being about Mercia and establishing something new. While Rob's dialogue being all medieval makes it harder for me to understand what he's saying, making me have to pay more attention to him, it's ultimately good because it sets him apart from other hedgehogs like Scourge, having him talk formally. And that's especially necessary when it's just another hedgehog and there's no color in the art. We get to see someone talking like Robbo Hedge, but being evil. He says that unlike everyone else who came to give him an offering, he knows which offering to give him. He says that he's learned that Mexique was looking for the power of the Shadow Core, a magical artifact I suppose, that he almost got, but then got banished to these depths before getting the chance. I guess by other dragons that are more powerful than him. He tells Mexique that he can't take this ancient power for himself unless he possesses a consenting body. Why does he have to consent logically? Maybe because the person could resist him. Maybe because if the person wasn't willing to go along with what he wanted to do, he'd be able to resist despite being possessed. So he pulls his hand back when he tried to move it forwards and so on. Mexique goes from hating him for being a narcissist to loving him because he's vengeful and evil. So he really was evil. He went from intriguing to just pure evil monster. He says his evil proposal is truly sensational, like he's a cartoon villain, and he's told that this is why he was given the title of Hazen. Huh? The word Hazen means nothing to me. I'm not that wild about him being called Hazen instead of Rob or Evil Rob. Hazen doesn't mean anything to me, so it just comes off like he's another Sonic OC. It sounds like he's got a random renaming just to have a new name for him because he's been used in a story for the first time by a fan writer. And if he only has a new name to have a new name and he didn't think about it, it would be because Scourge wanted everyone on his planet to rename themselves. But of course the king wouldn't comply with that. And instead he has that name because he's known for being evil. But that's also confusing and just makes his name off-putting because Hazen doesn't mean anything. Come to think of it, you can't spell Hazen without haze. And people are said to haze people trying to join fraternities in college and stuff. So I guess that's why he calls himself Hazen. But if that's what his name was based on by the people of Mercia, his name should have just been Haze. That would get the point across right away. He hazes people. It'd be interesting to learn why he turned out this way, instead of just being like that because he lives in the reverse universe. But oh well. Just like that, their contract is bound. The dragon goes into him, and on Tumblr, the comic tries to recreate the ending of the first scene of Scourge Eternal Blackout, though that scared witness doesn't look like the one that. And it turns out Maziz changed his clothing to look like the hooded outfit of Robbo Hedge. And since he's about to give him a bow, now it makes sense that he'd think it would suit this occasion. I have to assume he's speaking metaphorically when he calls the people who stitched this outfit together shadows. Because how would shadows be able to do anything, let alone stitch together an outfit? I guess he's just calling the people of his realm shadows because they look that way. But if I'm just confused by no explanation, I'm not going to take it seriously. And instead would prefer the idea that he conjured it up. He's already a dragon that has the non-elemental magical power of reviving the dead. So it shouldn't be too confusing that you can also give him a new outfit and a bow, but it still is. What does that have to do with reviving the dead? He's already the dragon of reviving the dead, but he's also the dragon of creating bows and warping outfits to people. Now that's convenient. I would have preferred it if it kept it simple and he really did have that hooded outfit because he was buried with it. But why would he have been? He was the king. So this was necessary to explain why he was dressed like that. And he has eyes with black corneas. And when I first read Scourge Eternal Blackout, all it did was remind me of Metal Sonic. Not to mention all of the Robians. So that was confusing. But apparently he looked that way because of Meziz the dragon possessing him. We should have been told that. I'm left to just assume he only made his eyes look that way to have him look intimidating to people. But he doesn't explain that. So I'm just like, no wonder I thought he was just another robot. That's how robot eyes look. I thought he was a robot of boomers. I remember learning that the guy that was supposedly buried in the first issue of Scourge Eternal Blackout was actually supposed to be the evil Robbo Hedge. The story ends with Meziz asking the guy possessed for the sole purpose of finding the Shadow Core if he's ready to exact revenge on his brother, and he asked him this right away, letting it be his first priority, as the first thing he'd try to do. It's surprisingly convenient for Hazen that he'd be allowed to try to do that right away. The first thing he gets to do is a revenge quest that Meziz wouldn't have a reason to care about. He could have easily just gotten him to go after the Shadow Core first, and for an evil power-hungry dragon, that's more what I would expect of him. I'm glad I read this story, because if it's supposed to be about that guy that the first scene made a big deal out of in the graveyard, apparently it was necessary to read this to get an explanation for that. I didn't know what that was all about. And in retrospect, it's confusing that it was even shown so early when that guy didn't even interact with Scourge, even multiple issues later. It'd be better pacing to only show him when he was relevant. This issue by Scourge's best buddy was about the evil Robbo Hedge's ghost, conveniently managing to get to a dragon that can bring back the dead. When you think he'd have been forced to reincarnate, or forced into an afterlife instead. Lucky for him, this dragon exists. And he convinces him to bring him back from the dead, by saying that it'll let him possess his body, and help him get a magical Shadow Core that he wanted. Which he knew about because he researched him in the first place. Ghosts have been a thing in Sonic as early as Sandopple Zone, and they show up all the time, especially in Sonic the Comic, and by comparison, an afterlife has never been mentioned in the Sonic universe. The closest it came to that was Knuckles being told to become one with the Chaos Force, and that wouldn't have been like heaven or hell. Just exactly that. So apparently it's a very established thing in the Sonic series that when people die, they just become ghosts. So it should make sense that he would, and would go find him, but it's so confusing me. It doesn't make much sense to me that everyone would just become ghosts and stay on Earth and get to go wherever they want, and do whatever with no one trying to stop them or supervise them, if ghosts can even exist in the first place. Why didn't anyone run into Maria's ghost when they went into the Ark Knesset 2? It seems like it's only a few people. It was pretty easy for this guy to come back. I like the idea of him being used after Scourge referenced that he existed. I get him learning about the Shadow Core because he would have researched ancient history in desperation to get access to some special, world-devastating power. According to his description on his character art page, that's what he was doing, and that's why his brother took him out. But how would he know where the Shadow Core was? Why did Mexique just take his word for it that he knew where to go to get it when he didn't say where it was and tell us? But at least I finally know why the first scene of Scourge Eternal Blackout happened and what it was trying to go for. That was fascinating. The story was engaging enough for me to want to give it a chance in spite of its art.